What if the most misunderstood man in modern life isn't the one who talks less, but the one who leaves the room early? The one who turns down the invitation not because he is afraid of people, but because he is protecting something inside him that the noise cannot touch. We are trained to treat constant engagement like proof of life size. If a calendar full of plans is the same thing as a life full of meaning. If you choose stillness, the world tells you that you must be lonely, you must be stuck, you must be missing out. But there is another possibility. One that is older than our culture and more honest than our assumptions. What if home is not a hiding place but a sanctuary? A place where a man repairs his mind, reclaims his attention, and becomes more himself, not less. Today we are going to explore why the Stoic chooses solitude, and why the ability to sit quietly in a room alone might be the ultimate superpower in a chaotic world. Welcome to Stoic Wisdom Quotes. Here we do not just read philosophy. We apply it to the architecture of our daily lives. We take the ancient principles of the porch and bring them into the modern world to build resilience, clarity, and strength. If you are tired of the noise, if you are seeking a deeper form of freedom that doesn't depend on the approval of the crowd, you are in the right place. Before we begin the work today, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Join our community of thousands who are choosing wisdom over impulse. Like this video to help this message reach the men who need to hear it. Today, we are dismantling the stigma of solitude. We are going to walk through 11 pillars that explain why the sovereign man chooses his own company. This is not about becoming a hermit. It is about becoming unbreakable. Pillar 1. The Stoic foundation of inner sovereignty. Let us begin with the foundation. This first pillar explains everything that comes after it. It is the concept of emotional self-containment. In his private journals, known to us as meditations, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote these words to himself while commanding the most powerful empire on earth. Men seek retreats for themselves, houses in the country, seashores, and mountains. But this is altogether a mark of the most common sort of men. For it is in your power whenever you shall choose to retire into yourself. Think about that phrase, retire into yourself. Marcus was arguably the busiest man in the ancient world. He was fighting wars on the frontier, managing a plague, dealing with political treachery. He didn't always have the luxury of physical isolation. Yet he understood that the true sanctuary wasn't a cabin in the woods. It was a fortress inside the mind. He called it the Inner Citadel. The sovereign man doesn't choose home because he is hiding from the world. He chooses it because he is building this inner citadel. Emotional self-containment is the internal compass that makes a man impossible to hijack. When your sense of self lives inside you, the outside world can't keep yanking it around like a leash. Most of us don't notice how often we are paying a hidden tax just to exist socially. We are adjusting our tone. We are smiling when we don't feel like it. We are explaining ourselves, proving we are fine, proving we are capable, proving we belong. That constant proving slowly trains the nervous system to depend on feedback the way lungs depend on air. If you need the world to tell you who you are, the world can also tell you who you are not. If you need their applause to feel worthy, you will also be destroyed by their silence. The Stoic cuts this cord. When we are not constantly being reflected back by other people, we finally hear our own thinking clearly. For a certain kind of man, that clarity is nourishment. This is why home feels different for him. Home removes the demand to be interpreted. In that removal, he becomes his own witness again. Not performing, not negotiating, not editing his personality in real time. Ask yourself this with brutal honesty. When you get irritated by someone, are you reacting to what they said? Or are you reacting to what their reaction threatens to mean about you? Usually that is the hook. Someone's tone, someone's dismissal, hits a sensitive place where we still want permission. The moment we want permission, we become easy to provoke. The sovereign man trains the opposite reflex. He returns to his own compass first. Then, and only then, does he speak. Practical action. The 5-second anchor. Here is the same-day action to build this muscle. The next time you feel that spike of irritation, your chest tightens, your jaw sets. Your mind starts rehearsing speeches. Do not answer immediately. Take one slow breath and ask one quiet question before you do anything else. What do I know to be true about me? Even if this person never understands me, what is the fact? Name one concrete proof, not a motivational line, but a fact. I keep my word. I am consistent. I am building skills in silence. I have survived worse than this. Let that proof be your anchor for 5 seconds, and respond or don't respond from that anchored place. This is how you stop handing strangers the steering wheel of your inner life. Pillar 2. Managing your mental currency. The second pillar is restoring mental currency. This is where the logic of the sanctuary becomes undeniable. Once we stop arguing with the outside world about who we are, we start noticing something even more practical. Our energy is not infinite, and not every interaction deserves the same payment. Susan Cain, the author of Quiet, revolutionized how we understand this. She explains that introverts and extroverts have different nervous systems. It is a biological reality. For some men, the amygdala, part of the brain that processes threats and sensory inputs, more reactive. This means that for some of us, the world literally costs more. A crowded room isn't just people. It is noise. It is micro-decisions. It is facial expressions to read. It is tones to interpret. It is small performances to maintain. By the time you walk out, you aren't just tired, you are fragmented. It feels like your attention got split into 100 tiny pieces, and none of them came back with you. The Stoics were the original energy managers. Epictetus warned us to be careful about who we associate with, because we inevitably pick up their habits and their anxieties. He said, if you associate with a dirty person, you will get dirty yourself. This applies to energy as much as it applies to morals. When we run depleted, we become easier to provoke. That is the uncomfortable truth. Most anger is not strength. When the internal battery is low, a minor comment feels like an insult. Slow driver feels like a personal attack. A small inconvenience feels like disrespect. Suddenly we are mad at people when we are really mad at how thin we feel inside. The sovereign man understands this, so he treats home like a biocharger. It's not because he is fragile, but because he wants to show up to life from a full tank, not fumes. He doesn't chase peace as an aesthetic. He protects peace as a resource. Practical action. The currency audit here is the action step. Do a quick mental currency audit right after any social block or work meeting, a family visit, a date. Before you scroll on your phone, before you talk to anyone else, take 60 seconds and label the cost out loud. That was a high-cost interaction, or that was nourishing, or that drained me for no reason. Then choose a recharge ritual that matches the cost. If it was high cost, do not refill with more noise. Refill with stillness. 15 minutes at home with no input, no music, no podcasts. Just a shower or tea, or sitting near a window while your mind recomposes itself. Think of it like plugging your phone into a charger instead of shaking it and hoping it turns back on. Pillar 3. The mature capacity for solitude. Pillar 3 transforms solitude from a personality preference into a psychological achievement. We call this solitude as the mark of maturity. In 1958, the psychoanalyst D.W. Winnicott wrote a groundbreaking paper titled The Capacity to Be Alone. His thesis was profound. He argued that the ability to be alone, truly alone, without anxiety is one of the most important signs of emotional maturity. Winnicott observed that many people are afraid of being alone because they have not internalized a sense of safety. They need the external world to hold them together. When the external world goes away, they feel like they are falling apart. Seneca, the great Stoic advisor, wrote about this centuries before Winnicott. In his letters to Lucilius, he observed how men would run from one activity to another, traveling across the world, trying to escape their own company. He wrote, "You are running away from yourself. What you are looking for is right here, if you have a balanced mind." This hits hard if we are honest. A lot of people aren't afraid of being alone. They're afraid of what they will feel when they are alone. The silence brings up unfinished thoughts, old memories, insecurities, regrets, the restless inner noise that gets covered all day by conversations. Screens, errands, in constant motion, so we keep moving, we keep filling. We call it a social life, but often it is just a strategy to avoid meeting ourselves. The sovereign man chooses something harder. He chooses to build a friendship with his own mind. He understands that solitude is either a punishment or a privilege, depending on whether you have trained your inner world to be a safe place to live. That is why the same quiet room can feel like a prison for one person and freedom for another. The other person is finally with their thoughts. Practical action. The 10-minute solitude drill here is the skill to train. Set a timer for 10 minutes tonight. Practice being alone on purpose, not as a break, not as recovery. It's training. No music, no podcast, no scrolling. You can sit on the couch or on the floor or walk slowly around your room. But you are not allowed to feed the noise. Your only job is to observe what shows up. Tension in the chest, impatience, random worries. Label them quietly. Restlessness, planning, anger, sadness. Do not fix them. Do not obey them. Just watch them. If your mind tries to drag you into a story, bring it back to one physical anchor: your breathing or the feeling of your feet on the ground. 10 minutes. That's it. This is how you stop fearing the quiet. Pillar 4. Home as your personal dojo. This brings us to Pillar 4. The home as a dojo of discipline. A sovereign man does not use home merely as a couch to disappear into. He uses it as a space to practice deliberate living, the way an athlete uses a gym. Not to look busy, but to become capable. Consider Henry David Thoreau. In 1845, he went to Walden Pond. He didn't go because he hated society. He went for a specific purpose. He wrote, in one of the most famous passages of American literature, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." To live deliberately, that is the key. Outside, the world is full of random demands. Traffic, interruptions, other people's timing, other people's expectations. That randomness creates a subtle helplessness, like you are always reacting, always adjusting, always late to your own life. But inside your walls, you can design rhythm. And rhythm is power. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly to focus on the task at hand with unaffected dignity. The home is the easiest environment. To build this discipline because you control the friction. You control what you see when you wake up. You control what you reach for when you are tired. If you set that up well, your future self is protected from your weaker moments. That is why some men love being home, because home lets them become the author of their own defaults. Practical action, the protected zone. Turn your home into a dojo in under 30 minutes. Choose one protected zone in your house. It might be a specific chair, a corner of a desk, or a mat on the floor. Assign the zone one single purpose. Maybe it is the chair where you only read. It's the desk where you only do deep work. It's the corner where you only meditate. Here's the rule. No scrolling there. No arguing there. No eating there. Just that one purpose. You're teaching your brain by association. When the body enters that space, the mind shifts gears. Home becomes a dojo. Staying in stops being passivity. It becomes training. Pillar 5. Removing the social mask. Pillar 5 is where the sanctuary turns into a mirror, meeting the true self by removing the mask. The loudest benefit of home isn't comfort, it is honesty. Out in the world, most of us wear a socially acceptable version of ourselves without even realizing it. Epictetus, the slave-turned-philosopher, often spoke about the roles we play. He used the analogy of a play, saying we must act our part well, but we must never confuse the actor with the character. But we do confuse them. We smooth the edges, laugh at things that aren't funny. We hold back opinions that might create tension. We act fine when we are not. Over time, that performance becomes so normal that we start confusing it with our identity. We feel like we are only real when someone else is watching. When you are alone at home, the mask doesn't have a job anymore. There is no one to impress, no one to manage, no one to convince. This sounds beautiful, but it is also why people avoid it. When the mask drops, the backlog appears. Thoughts you have been postponing, feelings you have been suppressing. The home doesn't create those things. It just stops drowning them out. The sovereign man chooses to face that, not in one dramatic breakdown, but in small, honest conversations with himself. He knows a painful truth. Whatever we refuse to face inside eventually finds a way to control us outside. Practical action, the mismatch audit. Take a piece of paper. Write for 3 minutes answering this prompt. The version of me I perform for the world is... Finish that sentence. Agreeable, tough, always funny, competent. Then write for 3 minutes on this prompt. The version of me that feels true at home is tired, unsure, quiet, creative. Circle the biggest mismatch. That circle is your next growth assignment. cannot heal what you refuse to name. Pillar 6. Liberation from external validation. This leads us to Pillar 6. Freedom from the tyranny of validation. Validation is the most socially acceptable addiction in the world. The Stoics were obsessed with the dichotomy of control, knowing what is up to us and what is not. Other people's opinions? Not up to us. Yet we live as if our self-esteem depends on their vote. Winnicott Gavrani writes beautifully about healing from the need for external validation. The core idea is brutally practical. When your self-esteem depends on other people's recognition, you become easy to control. Anyone who can grant approval can also threaten to withdraw it. This is why the sanctuary of home matters so much. At home, the gaze disappears. The invisible audience leaves the room. You are not being watched, rated, compared, or measured. In that privacy, authenticity becomes possible. You wear what you want because it feels right, not because it signals status. You think what you think without rehearsing how it will be received. You rest without needing to justify it. This is not laziness. This is recovery from a culture that treats constant visibility like a virtue. Practical action. The secret act: pick one small behavior you usually do for social approval and remove it for 24 hours. Maybe it is checking who viewed your story. Maybe it is laughing to fill a silence. Then, replace it with one private act that reinforces self-respect, something only you will know. Read 10 pages. Clean one corner of your room. Lift weights. Write one honest paragraph. The point is to train the brain to feel rewarded by alignment, not applause. Do that for a day, and you will feel the shift. When validation isn't your fuel, people can't steer you. Pillar 7. Filtering inputs for deep focus. Pillar 7 turns the sanctuary into a cognitive advantage, filtering sensory inputs to unlock deep focus. The modern world doesn't just distract us, it overstimulates us. Seneca complained about the noise of Rome, the grunting of the bodybuilders below his apartment, the shouting of vendors. He realized that to think, one must guard the gates of the mind. Some men are simply more sensitive to input. This is not a weakness. It is a kind of precision. It's like a finely tuned instrument that produces incredible music in the right environment, but terrible noise in the wrong one. When everything is loud, the mind cannot settle. When the mind cannot settle, it reacts to everything. Home, when designed intentionally, acts as a filter. It reduces inputs, so your brain can stop scanning for threats and start building something. Carson McCullers described a kind of deep inner concentration in her work. We have all felt it's that rare state where you are so immersed in a book, a project, or a skill that time changes shape. You come out calmer, clearer, stronger, not because you escaped the world, but because you finally used your mind the way it was meant to be used. Practical action, the 2-layer filter. Create a 2-layer filter at home tonight. Layer 1, the space. Choose one surface you stare at and clear it completely. Visual clutter is cognitive load. Layer 2, the device. Set a focus gate for 90 minutes. Phone in another room, notifications off. When sensory input drops, your nervous system stops bracing. When your nervous system stops bracing, you stop being so easy to provoke. Pillar 8. Simple living as rebellion. Pillar 8 is political. It is simple living as an act of rebellion. Modern life has a hidden agreement. If you stay busy, you stay consuming. If you keep consuming, you keep needing to stay busy to justify it. It is a cycle that harvests your attention. Thoreau saw this clearly in the 1800s. He said, "Our life is frittered away by detail. Simplicity, simplicity, simplicity." He didn't just want to save money, he wanted to save his soul from the desperate city. The Stoics practiced voluntary simplicity. Musonius Rufus argued that furnishings and food should be functional, not ostentatious. Why? Because status chasing is a search for belonging through symbols. Look at me, accept me. The sovereign man flips the equation. He chooses being overdoing. He would rather feel grounded than look impressive. Staying home becomes a calm no to the theater of constant activity. Practical action, the impulse interruption. Pick one status impulse today and interrupt it. The urge to buy something you don't need. The urge to post something just to be seen. The urge to go out just so you aren't the guy who stayed in. When you feel the urge, ask, what am I trying to prove, and to whom? Then do a replacement action that builds depth. Cook a meal from scratch. Fix something that is broken. Rebellion is not always loud. Sometimes rebellion is just sitting quietly while everyone else rushes to buy things. Pillar 9. Transforming loneliness into richness. Pillar 9 addresses the fear, turning loneliness into richness. Loneliness and solitude are not the same experience. Loneliness is the feeling that something is missing, like you are outside of life looking in. Solitude, when it is healthy, is the feeling that something essential is present, like you are finally inside your own life. In his seminal book Solitude, A Return to the Self, Anthony Storr argued that the human imagination thrives in the absence of others. He looked at figures like Newton, Beethoven, and Kafka. He showed that connection to the inner world is just as vital as connection to the outer world. A man becomes hard to disturb when his inner world is a place he doesn't want to escape. His room isn't empty. It is furnished. Furnished with books that shape his thinking, music that steadies his emotion, plans that give his future weight, skills that make time meaningful. The outside world might call that boring, but the outside world confuses stimulation with life. Practical action. The solitude menu. Build a solitude menu today. 3 items. 1 for the mind, a specific book or subject. 1 for the body, a workout or stretch routine. 1 for the future, a skill you are building. Write them down. Next time you feel that lonely itch at home, do not negotiate. Choose 1 item and start. You are training your brain to associate being alone with abundance, not lack. Pillar 10. Designing your psychological architecture. Pillar 10 is practical. Psychological architecture. The mere mind. A home is never neutral. It is either shaping you toward clarity or pulling you toward chaos. Dud. The Stoics believe that the environment reflects the mind, but also that the mind reflects the environment. Marcus Aurelius spoke of keeping the inner citadel free of disturbance. But it is hard to keep the inner citadel clean if the outer citadel is a disaster. When your space is cluttered, your mind keeps doing microscans all day. Tiny reminders of unfinished tasks. Tiny visual interruptions. It creates a low-grade state of stress. The sovereign man builds his home the way an architect builds a cathedral. Not for show, but for the state of mind it produces. He wants his environment to be an ally, a silent partner that holds him steady. Practical action. The sovereign corner. Pick 1 high-visibility surface in your home. The desk, the bedside table, the counter. Clear it. Make it a mirror of the man you are becoming. Place 1 object there that represents your direction. A book, a weight, quote. Then establish a tiny ritual. Every night, reset that 1 surface. 2 minutes, you're telling your brain. We close the day in control. Men who close the day in control do not wake up as easy to provoke. Pillar 11. Conquering stillness phobia. And finally, Pillar 11. The ultimate challenge. Resisting stillness phobia. We live in a world that treats quiet like a problem. Pause must be filled. Silence must be explained. But the French philosopher Blaise Pascal saw the danger of this centuries ago. In his Pensies, he wrote one of the most famous lines in philosophy. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Why? Because when we cannot sit still, we do desperate things to feel something. We start arguments. We chase bad relationships. We gamble. We destroy. We run. Because stopping would force us to hear what we have been avoiding. Stillness phobia steals your judgment. The sovereign man trains against it. He treats stillness like strength training. Because if you can sit in quiet without craving a hit of stimulation, you become harder to manipulate, harder to sell to, it's harder to scare. Practical action. The stillness rep. Your final action is the stillness representative. 20 minutes. No phone, no music. Just sit. When boredom shows up, watch it. When anxiety shows up, watch it. When the urge to check your phone spikes, watch it rise and fall like a wave. Your only job is to stay present long enough to prove to your nervous system that you are safe in your own company. That is the victory. The man who leaves the room early isn't running away. He is going to the forge. We have walked through the architecture of the sovereign life, emotional containment, mental currency, the discipline of the dojo, the removal of the mask, the freedom from validation. None of this is about hiding. It is about ownership. The man who can sit quietly with himself is the man who doesn't need to prove himself. And the man who doesn't need to prove himself cannot be easily provoked, easily purchased, or easily steered. If you found value in this, if you are ready to build your own citadel like this video, it helps us find others. Subscribe to Stoic Wisdom Quotes. Share this with a brother who needs to hear that his solitude is a strength. The world will always offer you noise. It is up to you to choose the silence. Until next time, stay stoic, stay sovereign.